Since you hit play on Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast today, I want to make sure that you know that our free self-love challenge is happening in February 2024 right here on the podcast. The goal of this challenge is to make creating an intentional practice of self-love even easier than ever simply by plugging in your earbuds and listening for about 10 minutes per day. But for the full experience, you're going to want to get the scorecard so you can enter the giveaways, get the daily journal prompts sent to your inbox, and join us for the live wrap-up podcast recording. Yes, you get to join me in the studio and record the podcast together live. It is all free. Go to wifeteachermommy.com/self-love challenge to sign up. Again, it is completely free. You'll get a daily reminder with the free 10-minute coaching each day and your journal prompt, and you will see a transformation over these 14 days. It is not only going to impact your relationship with yourself, but as I'll teach during the challenge, it is going to impact every single other relationship you have in your life, your relationship with other people, your relationship with teaching. That energy is going to impact every single other aspect of your life. So sign up at wifeteachermommy.com/self-love challenge. It's free. Now let's get to the episode. You are listening to episode number 99 of Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast, 12 must-listen podcasts for back to school. From your open house to feeling the Sunday scaries, we have a huge collection of podcasts for you, and I have selected the top 12 that I think will be the most useful for you for back to school. Let's go. Welcome to Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast. I'm Kelsey Sorensen, a former elementary teacher and current homeschool mom. And even though I've been a resource creator since 2014, I've realized that printables alone aren't all you need in order to thrive as a teacher or homeschool parent. That's why I also created this show and got certified as a life coach to help you finally kick burnout to the curb and feel confident with whatever challenges come your way. With the right mindset strategies and new teaching inspiration, you're going to be well on your way to your best teacher life. Now let's go. Hello, my friend. I'm so excited to be back here today on Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen as always. And I'm really excited because if you heard, this is episode number 99 of the podcast, which means we are so close to 100 episodes, and I'm very excited about that. I have loved this podcasting journey so far. It's been a little over a year now, and I've loved doing so many episodes for you, having a couple periods where I even did 2 episodes a week, which has been a lot of fun. And I do want to let you know that it is now time. We're going back to 1 episode per week. I did 2 episodes starting with our promotion for Educate and Rejuvenate, our amazing summer conference that we did, because I wanted to interview a speaker each week. And then I wanted to still be able to do my own thing on the podcast as well. And then I kept it going through this summer because during this summer, I know a lot of you have more time. You might be traveling. You might have more time to listen because you have less going on during the school year. But now it is time that I'm going back to 1 episode. I am starting to write a book. So I also need to be writing that content as well. And I'm doing weekly calls inside Wife Teacher Mommy Club. So it's a lot of content to create. And I just want to make sure that I can keep the quality of the content high. So we're going back to 1 episode on this show every week. If you are a Wife Teacher Mommy Club member, though, make sure you are also subscribed to our members only private podcast, where, like I said, we aim for at least 1 call per week. I do 1 every week that I'm in town and available. And then we also have our amazing Chrissy Nichols, who does calls as well. All of those will hit the member podcast. So if you're going to miss the double episodes, be sure to subscribe to that if you're a member, because you can also soak up all the coaching, all the replays from our coaching and Educate and Rejuvenate on the private podcast. So, and if you're not a member, be sure to go to wifeteachermommy.com/club and check out where you can learn more about the club if you would like to join us. But either way, I'm so excited that you are here with me on Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast, and we're about to celebrate 100 episodes, which I'm very excited about. And starting today, as this episode airs, we are going to do a weekly discussion thread inside our free Facebook group. It's completely free. The group is called Wife Teacher Mommies Unite. And each week there will be a gift card giveaway in the discussion thread. So we'll randomly pick somebody who participates in the discussion thread. So if you're listening now, why not join the conversation? I don't want this to be just me talking to you, but a community that we build as well. So be sure to head over to Wife Teacher Mommies Unite and join that Facebook group if you haven't yet. It's free. We will also be doing that weekly giveaway. And then if you're listening live in August of 2023, at the end of the month in our Facebook group, we're going to do a big celebration where we're going to have lots of giveaways. I'll tell more about it on next week's episode because I want to announce it on our 100th episode, but I do want to let you know, you do want to be in that group. There's a weekly giveaway starting today. And then at the end of the month, there's something really exciting coming. So stay tuned. I'll tell you more about that next week. And the last thing I want to mention is if you've been enjoying this podcast for any of the journey so far of our 99, almost 100 episodes, I would love if you would rate the podcast and leave a review. It helps me to reach other podcast listeners who might find this helpful. Let me read what one of our amazing listeners, MK Galvez, had to say. She titled this review, Permission to be Human. This podcast is amazing because it's not just educational, but it's a support system. Love all the information and encouragement in every episode. It showcases the challenges in the classroom and home and includes solutions and encouragement. Thank you so much for that review. And these reviews just mean so much to me. I read each and every one of them. So thank you. Okay, so for today, what I did, because I'm going back to one episode, and some of you might be like, oh no, I'm bummed. Like, I like having the 2 episodes per week. I also know that there's a good chance you haven't listened to all 99 episodes. And I handpicked the top 12 episodes that I think you'll want to listen to in the back to school season. So I would love for you to bookmark these. You can go to, if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can go to each episode number. I'm going to share the title and the episode number, and you can click on it, and then you can hit the little save icon. And then I don't use Spotify, but when I Googled, it says that there's a plus icon on Spotify that you can use to like add it to your saved podcasts or whatever. So either of those ways you can do that. And I'm sure if you listen on any other platform, there's a way to do that as well. Now, I'm going to, in the show notes of this episode, we'll link to the show notes for each of these. So in the show notes, we'll link to each of the episodes that I mentioned, and we'll put the number next to the title of each episode right in the episode description. So not even in the show notes, but even if you're listening on like Apple or Spotify, we'll put the episode numbers and titles right there. So you can be like, okay, that's number 22 or whatever. I'm going to go over to that episode. I'm going to listen to it when I'm done with this one. That is how it's going to work. So it can be really easy. And then on the show notes, we're also like the show notes page on our website. So there's the episode description, which is what you're looking at in like Apple or Spotify, and that has the description there. But in the show notes, if you click through to our website, we will make a playlist of these episodes with the podcast player. So you can easily listen to them all right there on the page on our website if you prefer, especially if you feel like maybe you're not the most tech savvy or whatever, and you don't know how to find all the different episodes. That can be a great way to just easily be able to open up a web page and click on each one and listen. Okay, so let's get into my list of recommended episodes for you for back to school. What I want to mention is these aren't in order as far as like how much I recommend them. I'm just actually sharing them. I picked 12 that I think are the top, and I'm sharing them in the order that they came out. So it'll make it easy for you to find. So my first recommended episode for you for back to school is episode number 22, which is called How to Rock Your Open House / Back to School Night. And in this one, if you are a school teacher, now for homeschool parents, this obviously isn't as relevant, but for those of you who are school teachers and you do like an open house or back to school night at the beginning of the year, meet the teacher, whatever you call it, there are lots of different names for it, but it's where you invite your students and their families and get to know them before the school year begins, or maybe it's shortly after the school year begins. In this, I share lots of tried and true tips from other teachers about their back to school nights. I share ideas and insights to make planning it easier, and just some of the mindset things to keep in mind, like building that relationship and everything. So if you are planning one of those, I highly recommend bookmarking episode number 22, which is How to Rock Your Open House or Back to School Night. Next is episode number 25. This one is called Insanely Clever Attention Getters from Real Teachers. So for this one, I actually crowdsourced a bunch of call and response or other types of attention getters that you can use in your classroom. And some of them are really, really fun and creative. Some of them even involved me singing on the podcast. And for those of you who don't know, I used to be like a singer. I used to be in a band in my high school and college days, which was really fun. So in that one, you actually get to hear a little bit of me singing in there because some of the call and response prompts involve singing. There's ones with Frozen and some other Disney movies and just really fun ones. Red Robin, all kinds of fun attention getters because sometimes it's really fun to freshen them up. Like you might have ones you're already using, but maybe like in the coming school year, you just want to freshen things up a bit. Or if the kids are getting tired of certain ones, it can be a great way to get them excited about it again. Like if they're like old news about an attention prompt or whatever, and obviously we're at the beginning of the year, so whatever you do might be new, but this could be a good one to revisit any time of year when you're like, okay, I need to kind of reset with my classroom management. You can always try a new attention prompt because when it's new and exciting, it's more novel for the children and they might respond to it a little bit better. Okay, the next one I recommend is actually the next two are a 2-episode segment that I did. And they're actually episodes 31 and 33 because this was during one of the times where I was doing double episodes. And so it was on like that day of the week. And then I had like I think I had an interview on in between. But it was a 2-episode segment where we talked all about the gaps in education. So the first one was the achievement gaps in education. And the tagline for both of these two are tips from real teachers like you. And this is one where I did the thing called Video Ask, which is where I invited members of our community to record a little video or audio clip for me that I could share on the show and where they could share their experiences with the achievement gap in the first episode or with the social skills gaps in episode 33. They got to share either of those. And then I also posted like in the Wife Teacher Mommies Unite Facebook group and our Facebook page to get responses from teachers that I could read out. And then what I did is I took everything that everybody said, along with my own tips and insights, and synthesized them all together to create some really thorough episodes about the achievement gaps in education and the social skills gaps in education. And these we've seen with COVID, but they've still continued over the years because, we had 2 years of the pandemic and all the catching up from that. And we're still seeing it to this day. And we were seeing it before too, but it's just become even more prevalent. So these episodes can be really helpful. One, because you can listen and just know you're not alone with where these students are at. And two, you can get some real tips and insights for what to do about it. So I highly recommend episode number 31, the achievement gaps in education, 33, social skills gaps in education, tips from real teachers like you. Okay, now we're going to jump ahead in the podcast a little bit. We have some in the 20s and 30s. The next one I recommend actually is episode number 60, which is how to calm the teacher's Sunday scaries. And this can be applicable not just for the Sunday scaries that you feel on Monday, but it can also be applicable to like you could replace Sunday scaries with back to school scaries. So if you're feeling all the emotions about going back to school, the feelings of anxiety or dread or whatever it is. And also you might have those on like Sunday nights leading up to like the first few weeks of the school year or whatever. If you know exactly what I'm talking about, when I'm talking about the Sunday scaries or the back to school scaries, and you're feeling those feelings and maybe you're avoiding them or maybe you're feeling them or maybe you're totally reacting to them. And if you actually don't know what I'm talking about all those different things, I share about that in that episode. We're talking about how to process those feelings, how to not just push them down, but how to feel them, how to process them, what to do about them, and also how they're okay. Like it's not a bad thing that you're feeling that, but also some things you can do to potentially alleviate them in the future. So episode number 60 is one I highly recommend for anybody who can relate to the phrase Sunday scaries or Sunday blues, whatever you might call it. Okay, the next episode that I recommend is episode number 63, which is how to motivate the quote lazy students or the quote bad kids. Now, this one is all about us managing the kids that we teach. And it's like our classroom management. It does take more of a teacher perspective, but I in the Homeschool Moms Summit, I recommended this episode, and the homeschool moms also found it very helpful because I had a lot of moms say, my kids don't want to do school, and I should probably do an episode all about that soon, specifically for the homeschool mamas. But in this one, for the teachers, we're talking all about how to motivate the lazy students or the bad kids. And we talk about how those are labels that we put on the students, and how what we can control versus what we can't control. Like, we can't control exactly what students are doing in any given moment, but what we can control is our response to what is going on and how we evaluate it later and what we try next time and everything like that. So what we're talking about is what we can control and what we can't control as far as motivating our students. So episode number 63 is very helpful if you're wanting to take a look at your classroom management. The next episode that I recommend is episode number 64, which is called How to Create Your Ideal Classroom Management Plan with Linda Kardamis. I just loved this interview. And in fact, it's one of only 2 interviews that I am mentioning in this series. And this episode, for one, it was really popular episode. It has a lot of downloads. And Linda just has incredible tips for you all about creating a very specific classroom management plan. And actually, the reason I have 63 and 64 here is I feel like 63 is a lot of the mindset behind getting into the right headspace to do this classroom management plan. And I talk about some of the things she mentions too, kind of the beginning of it. And then in episode 64, we really dive into actually creating that management plan. So you have a clear plan of what you're going to do. You're not making decisions in the heat of the moment. You know exactly how you're going to handle specific situations. Your students know, you're consistent, all of these things. We talk about that in episode number 64 in very vivid detail. So I would recommend heading over to episode 64 if you're wanting help with your classroom management plan for the upcoming school year. I'm interrupting this episode for just a moment to share an experience from one of our newest incredible members of Wife Teacher Mommy Club. Her name is Ashley, and I just love having her as a member of the club. Here's what she's had to say so far.
I joined Wife Teacher Mommy Club because there are just so many resources available to club members, classroom resources, and the personal side with the coaching. That is a huge resource that I did not have prior to joining the club. And it's been really great getting an outside perspective on problems and issues that I might be facing. It really helps me to see them from another perspective. For me, Wife Teacher Mommy Club offers more than just the resources. It has that coaching component, and it has the Facebook group and the community component. It also has, that professional development component, the Educate Rejuvenate series, and all of those things together, I think, help me in my job as a teacher. It's not just a one-off thing. All of that together really helps make the whole package. I want all of the things, and Wife Teacher Mommy gives that to me.
To learn more about Wife Teacher Mommy Club, go to wifeteachermommy.com/club to request an invite for the next time that we open the doors. I hope to see you inside the club soon. Okay, next we are going to look at episode number 67, which is how to be confident as a teacher. In this one, I talk about the difference between self-confidence and confidence in your capabilities. And we talk about ways that you can kind of shift your mindset to be more confident in yourself, but also the steps that might lead to you feeling more confident in your capabilities as well. So building that self-confidence and also building your confidence in your capabilities as a teacher. And this is relevant to you, whether you are a brand new teacher or whether you're a veteran teacher, 20 years, because I've been talking to a lot of teachers who maybe they're like, I've been teaching for 22 years and I feel like I should have this down more by now. Like, I've heard sentiments like this from so many different teachers. So no matter where you are, if you are feeling any sort of lack of confidence in your abilities, in yourself, as you're going into this new school year, I would recommend episode number 67, How to Be Confident as a Teacher, for you. Okay, next is probably my favorite interview I've ever done, and I'm pretty sure our top downloaded episode of all time. It is episode number 70, Hope, Humor, and Inspiration for Teachers with Christina Kuzmich. And part of that is because this is really kind of like a bucket list interview that I did. Like, Christina Kuzmich is someone I have been a huge fan of for years, and the fact that I got to sit down and interview her for like an hour was incredible and ask her all the questions that I had. She is amazing. For all of you who are at Educate and Rejuvenate, you got to see firsthand how incredible she was with her keynote. She has almost 3 million followers on Facebook. She's had billions of video views on YouTube and Facebook with her inspirational and funny videos. And in this podcast episode, you'll hear a lot of that hope, humor, inspiration stories from Christina, and we tailor it to those who are listening here, teachers and homeschool parents. So it is specifically for all of you. If you like this podcast and you have not listened to that episode, or even if you have and you just want to circle back to it, because it is an amazing, incredible episode. If you just need reminders about just one thing she says in that episode is give yourself more credit than criticism and more grace than judgment. And another thing she shares in that episode is the harder the day, the more grace to give. Like if you just need some more inspiration, if you just need to pick me up after a hard day or just heading into the new school year, be sure to check out episode 70, Hope, Humor, and Inspiration for Teachers with Christina Kuzmich. The next episode I recommend is episode number 77, How to Create an Intentional Schedule and Actually Stick to It. I know that a lot of times we will create a schedule or create a plan and then life happens, right? And it will always continue to happen. There's life, just things that come up. There are surprises. We have mindset drama that comes up. We have thoughts. We have feelings. We have take different actions when we're feeling different ways, as we know from the podcast. But what I have to share with you in episode 77 is the process that I use to make a super intentional schedule where I really try not to put too much on myself. What I've found as I've been coaching so many teachers is that a lot of times we are expecting way too much of ourselves. So creating an intentional schedule is not about creating a schedule where you load absolutely everything into it. It is about creating a schedule that is intentional. Like these are the priorities. These are when they're actually going to happen. And these are the things that we need to do to honor that schedule when things come up, or to make sure that there's some room to shuffle things around if something absolutely does need to be moved. And we talk about the difference between urgent tasks and important ones and all kinds of things that will help you to follow my intentional schedule process in this episode. And I also want to mention, if you are a member of Wife Teacher Mommy Club, I dive into even more of this in my club workshop of the same title, How to Make an Intentional Schedule and Actually Stick to It. So we talk a lot about the process in the podcast, but there are more that we were able to dive into that workshop. So if you're a member, I also recommend finding the workshop version of that. I plan on teaching another live version of this soon, especially now that I feel like I have even more insight since I recorded that from working with even more teachers through Educate and Rejuvenate. We've kind of gone through this process a little bit more with more teachers. So I do plan on teaching that one again soon for those who are in the club. Okay, next is episode number 81. And this one is called The Simple Mindset Hack to Up-Level Your Teacher Life. So this is where I start teaching you a little bit more about the concepts behind the self-coaching model that I use with our members, with my clients inside Wife Teacher Mommy Club. But you get to learn about it right here on the podcast. So this talks about where our blind spots are as people. And we're all people, we all have brains, we all have mind drama. And this mindset hack is just one little tiny thing that is going to help you to up-level your teacher life, even if nothing else changes, even if your circumstances in your life stay the same. Understanding the power of this mindset hack that I teach on episode number 81 is going to definitely change the game for you. So I recommend right now, I'm not going to give away too much because I really want you to listen to the episode. And I share a story about I share a really funny story for one about really silly story about me at the grocery store. You'll want to hear. And also on that, I talk about a YouTube video that went viral about 10 years ago that came up in one of my coaching groups with a lot of coaches who were certified through the same school as me. One of them posted it there. And I was like, oh my goodness, I remember that video. And now seeing it in this new lens was really interesting. So if you've been around on Facebook for over 10 years, you might have seen this video because it was everywhere. But we tie it into this mindset hack. So be sure to check out episode number 81, The Simple Mindset Hack to Up-Level Your Teacher Life. And last but not least, the next episode that I recommend is episode number 90, Owning Your Teacher Wins. And this is a full recording of my session at Educate and Rejuvenate 2023. And I have done this session now quite a few times. I've done it. That was the second year at Educate and Rejuvenate. I've done it at several different summits, and I just did it at the Show Up for Teachers event here in Utah in person. And the reason I keep sharing this information is because I believe it is really what every teacher and every homeschool parent, all of you here, what you need to hear. And I keep sharing it because it was also the top rated session at Educate and Rejuvenate 2022. I have not checked the 2023 stats yet, but I don't believe it's because of me. I believe it's because of the content that is shared in this and the reminder that we all need that we are doing so much more than we are giving ourselves credit for. We're always moving the goalpost of where we want to end up. We're always looking at just the next thing we need to do and measuring ourselves against that and beating ourselves up against that, instead of realizing that, oh, wow, look at how far I have come in the last year, 6 months, 10 years, 20 years, how far I have come in my teaching, in my life, in all these different things. When we take some time to notice and recognize our wins, it makes all of the difference. I share a concept in that episode, which is, again, a full presentation, all about the gap and the gain. Is a concept by amazing strategic coach Dan Sullivan. And I'm teaching all about that, but how it applies to you specifically. And then I teach some strategies for owning your wins each and every day. So be sure to check out episode number 90, Owning Your Teacher Wins. Okay, so that was the full list of episodes that I recommend for you as you head into back to school. And if you listen to these, I know that it is going to help you get in the mindset for back to school, to live your best life, to have your best school year, to be ready to tackle whatever comes your way. Because I know from personal experience how powerful this mindset work is and how it's made such a difference in my life. And I've seen the difference it has made in so many of our members' lives and Chrissy's life and everybody who has come in contact with this work. And I'm so grateful to be able to share so much of it with you here on the podcast. It's readily accessible. It's free for so many of you. So this work is so powerful. So if all you do with it is you hit subscribe on this podcast and you keep listening each week, I believe that this work is going to be incredibly transformational for you and in the process for your students, for your families, for everyone. It is a total ripple effect when we take a look at our minds, when we take a look at what is going on in our thoughts, feelings, actions, and the results we are creating in our lives. It is just magical work. Again, I want to share another review that was shared on the podcast from Twimsy_amp. She said she's loving Wife Teacher Mommy. She said, I'm learning so much and it's so nice to be part of a community that share the same thoughts. When I listen to the podcast, I leave refreshed and less stressed. And I love that this podcast can be that for you. So what I want to tell you, your to-do list homework from this episode is to download these 12 episodes, or at least the ones that sounded the most relevant to you, add them to your list so you can listen to them over the coming weeks as you head into your back to school season. And then the other thing I would love for you to do is to head over to that free Wife Teacher Mommies Unite Facebook group for the discussion thread giveaway that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. We will have a discussion thread starting with this episode all about the 12 must listen podcasts. And when you comment, it is an entry into the giveaway. And we'll continue this every week on our weekly podcast episode. So we're back to one episode for the coming week. So we'll see you in about a week, but stay tuned for next week for the 100th episode and a big announcement of how we're going to celebrate that milestone. So I'll talk to you then. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you're ready to take the next step and work with me and take everything you learn on this podcast to the 10x level, I'd love for you to join me inside Wife Teacher Mommy Club. You'll get access to a library of 1,000+ resources that will help you take back your time. The resources alone easily pay off your club membership. Plus, if you join us on the quarterly plan or above, you'll get our luxury leather-bound teacher planner, a $50 value shipped to your door for free. But in my humble opinion, the most important part of the club is the opportunity to get coached on whatever comes your way, that you can thrive in teaching and life. You'll get to join weekly coaching calls with me and fellow club coaches to not only listen and consume this content, but really apply it to your life. This is where the magic happens. The doors are closed the majority of the year, but you can request a personalized invitation as a podcast listener. Simply go to wifeteachermommy.com/podcast invite to learn more. You can also find the link in the show notes. I hope to see you face to face on Zoom soon inside Wife Teacher Mommy Club.